Hello wonderful person, this is Anton, and in today's video we're going to be briefly talking about the updates for the Chinese Chang'e 4 mission that landed on the dark side or the opposite side of the moon and started its scientific experiment using several life species, including what seems to be a plant that seems to have started budding. But wait a second, what? That's right, according to the Chinese scientists, the cotton plant that they actually brought with the mission started to bud, basically started to live its life. Oh wait, I'm getting an update. What? What's that? Oh, it's dead now. Huh, well that was quick. So yeah, apparently, only within a few days of the beginning of the mission, everything in the capsule most likely have died. Now, let's actually talk a little bit more about this and why it probably happened. So first of all, I was actually about to make the video about this because as I've read the analysis of the mission and also the actual description of the capsule where they placed all of the materials, specifically I believe there were several plants, there was also silkworm larvae, fruit fly eggs, and obviously the cotton plant. Inside of this capsule they had, they had a camera, they had water provision. They didn't really have a very good temperature control though. As a matter of fact, from what I've read, it seems to have had none, or at least very, very rudimentary temperature control. Now, that is a huge problem. How can you bring a capsule that has no temperature control? Now, obviously, it's kind of a difficult task to achieve, but what happened here was actually kind of interesting and kind of silly. So, first of all, the actual landing, which we have a video of now, and by the way, if you would like to see a better version of this, go to Scott Manley's channel. He actually managed to recreate the video using an algorithm that creates this really cool effect, and it looks much better. But anyway, so this landing was amazing. The actual achievement of landing on the dark side of the moon was actually pretty cool, and the fact that they brought a scientific mission with actual life materials was also awesome. Everybody was so excited to see how this goes. But just like with the U2 mission that happened several years ago, things just kind of escalated pretty quickly, and within a week everything kind of stopped and basically finished. Now we still have the actual capsule and the rover, but the scientific mission is most likely now finished. And it finished for a very silly reason. The moon's night. The night on the moon, if you know anything about the moon, it lasts for about 2 weeks. It's a 14-day long cycle, and the day lasts for 14 days as well. And when the night hit, the temperatures on the dark side of the moon plummet very suddenly. As a matter of fact, the first observation of the temperature literally minutes after the night side sort of appeared was like minus 52 degrees Celsius. It was a sudden change of temperature. And it's going to go as low as minus 180 degrees Celsius. That's pretty chilly. Now, nothing on Earth can survive such a sudden drop. And as a matter of fact, plants by design cannot simply survive any kind of a sudden frost effect. That's why you sometimes get plants that actually die when you get overnight frost. The so-called killing frost usually happens when overnight the temperature goes below zero, the plant was not ready for it, and so all of the water on the inside of the plant and inside its cells turns into ice, and then all of the cells just burst. So basically the plant kind of explodes from the inside. And this is what happened with the cotton plant in the Chinese capsule. Unfortunately, there's nothing you can prepare for. The plants need to have an advanced signal, usually during autumn time when it starts getting a little bit chilly, to actually prepare for this. It takes them a few days to actually get ready, to prepare their cells to release the water. And without this signal, they cannot possibly survive. Now, before they launched the mission, the plants were obviously prepared for this, and so were the other life materials on board. And they were able to survive just fine in space for about 20 days. They survived the landing, they survived the initial conditions. But as soon as the cotton plant started budding, as soon as it basically revived itself, it was definitely not prepared for the sudden frost. And I'm sure that pretty much everything else in the capsule is most likely now dead. Now, it's not to say that I'm absolutely certain in this, but I have a pretty strong feeling that nothing survived. Now, here's the thing though. Once the day cycle comes back, once the daylight hits the moon, we're probably going to hear about this mission again. This is going to be sometime in early February, and it's possible that maybe, just maybe, something did survive. Now, if not the fruit flies, if not the actual silkworm, if not the plants, then maybe, just maybe, something will start rotting. And rot means that bacteria started to actually digest things. And this would be a sign that something does survive these conditions. That would be actually a good sign. If nothing starts rotting, if there's no actual change in anything, then that's a bad sign. That means that the mission is technically a failure. And the purpose of this mission was to actually see if we can maybe somehow create these plant colonies and essentially food colonies on the moon for future exploration of both the moon and the Mars. And if this mission failed, then that's a bad sign. That means that it's a lot more difficult for us to create any kind of a food or any kind of a livable condition on our moon and also on Mars. Oh, and by the way, this is definitely not the first time bacteria and living matter came to the moon. During the Apollo mission, all of the, how do I say this? Basically the leftovers, the kind of, poop and all the other food junk was actually left by the Apollo scientists and Apollo astronauts on the surface. It was obviously sealed in plastic bags, but it was left there. And we think that it may have, survived for a little bit, but it's probably long dead now. And if it's not, then, well, there's a slight chance that the moon is probably covered in some kind of a poop bacteria by now. But that's probably very unlikely. But nevertheless, we would really like to know now what actually happened to all of the living matter from the Chinese mission. If all of it is dead, we would like to possibly study a little bit more on how to prevent this in the future. And although landing on the moon, especially the dark side of the moon, is definitely a cool achievement, it would be a lot more cooler if China was able to actually create a living plant colony on the dark side of the moon. Unfortunately, it seems that the mission, at least the scientific component of the mission, has officially failed. So in 2 weeks, we're going to come back to this, and if something changed and if something cool has been discovered, we're going to talk about this again. So do come back, subscribe if you still haven't, and share this video with someone who you think might enjoy learning about sciences and space. On this note though, let's just wait and see what China discovers when the daylight comes back to the moon. But until then, we can maybe assume that everything on this mission and also inside of this strange looking capsule is probably no longer alive, which is kind of sad. I really had high hopes for these little worms and little flies. Well, maybe next time. On this note, thank you for watching, please subscribe and maybe even consider supporting the channel on Patreon. It does help me quite a lot, so thank you so much to everyone who's supported me so far. I'll see you guys tomorrow, space out, and as always, bye bye.